Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to embark on some note-taking with your worksheet and some definitions of the basic principles of the U.S. Constitution. Please feel free to stop along the way so that you can write down the full definition, and also to write down any questions or comments you may have that I can answer in class tomorrow. So let's begin with our first basic principle. And the first basic principle was republic. And a republic, you remember, is a nation in which voters choose representatives to govern them. And we're using the RE in representatives to remember that that is a republic. RE, republic, RE, representatives. This is the most basic definition of democracy, is that citizens have the opportunity to vote, and they get to vote for representatives, whether it be in the Congress or as a president. So this is a key term in just political science in general. Our next basic principle is popular sovereignty. The word popular means people. So the source of all power or authority to govern is from the people. Sovereignty means power. So people have the power. And again, if you go back to republic, which we just did, that's really what the democracy is based on. The fact that people get a chance to vote, whether it be for a representative or about a bill becoming a law or some other issue. The most basic form of democracy being enacted, being in, having some action, is in voting. Our third basic principle is limited government. And in limited government, the government powers are defined by the Constitution, not by other people. The Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, is what determines what governments can and cannot do, what government officials can and cannot do. We are a government of laws, not of people. So whatever the Constitution says is what goes. If things need to be changed within the Constitution, that's where amendments come in. But you don't just change the government rules or regulations because somebody says that they want to do that. They have to be changed through the Constitution and through the rules of the Constitution. Limited government. Separation of powers. This is a very simple term. You've probably talked about this when you were in grade school, that the Constitution establishes a separation of powers. The government is divided among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches to make sure that no one branch dominates the government. Every branch takes its power directly from the Constitution, not from another branch. And this was a very important principle that they wanted in this new Constitution, because remember, the Articles of Confederation were poorly prepared to handle the problems that were before this new nation, because they had a very weak federal government. They didn't have three different branches. They could pass laws, but it might have been very difficult to enforce them or to interpret them, to raise money so that they could have an army. All those things led to greater problems, which is why they went to Philadelphia in 1787 to revise the Articles, and then decided no, they needed to create a whole new Constitution. So these are the important definitions of this new document. Here's another simple term, checks and balances. You've probably talked about this since you were in 4th grade. Giving each branch of the government a way to check or control the other branches, preventing one branch from having too much power and kind of dictating what the other branches would do. With checks and balances, it gives each branch their own specific set of powers, but then a way to check or to balance the other branches. The most simple example, the legislative branch passes laws, and the executive branch or the president can veto the laws. So that's a very simple, very rudimentary example of checks and balances. And here's one you're going to need to add. I don't know if it's on your sheet or not, but you're going to need to also put this one down. It's called flexibility, which we all know what flexibility means when it comes to our, range of motion with our body. But flexibility, when we're talking about the Constitution, means that this document is a flexible living document that can meet the changing conditions over time. The Founding Fathers created a document that could change and could adapt to society changing as well. And a great example of that is in the Bill of Rights. The fact that we had to include a Bill of Rights to guarantee individual freedoms, those get tested all the time. Just because they were put into the Constitution in 1789 doesn't mean that they have remained stagnant, and we haven't had them tested in some ways. They're tested all the time. And so this new system of government, this democracy under the Constitution, has to have a way to kind of bend and balance with the changes in society. So now, having those good definitions, this should help you to understand the basic tenets of the Constitution and help you to understand that these are the overriding principles that guide the specifics of Articles 1 through 7, which we're going to talk about in more detail in class and in your homework. So again, if you need to go back to write, if you need to go back to maybe jot down a question or a comment, feel free to do that. But remember to also turn over that sheet, and you have a little bit of work and thinking to do about the preamble of the Constitution, which is really setting up the purpose of this important document, mostly written by James Madison. Not that it was all of his ideas, but he took the ideas and formulated them in such a way that they would be put into these 7 articles in a very coherent and understandable way. So we thank James Madison for being the father of the Constitution, for, in his way, being able to write the Constitution so that it was understandable. Okay, any questions? Write them down, and I will see you in class. Have a great night, and I hope you're glad to be back to school. We're glad to be back to a really normal routine. Can't wait to see you. Bye-bye.